Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel where I talk about movies. And today I want to talk about another movie that I purchased in the recent Barnes & Noble Criterion half price sale. And this is Winchester 73. This is the 4K UHD plus Blu-ray edition. The movie stars James Stewart, directed by Anthony Mann, and written by Borden Chase. Borden Chase was a big time important collaborator in these five westerns that Anthony Mann made with Jimmy Stewart in the 1950s. Now, this was sort of a departure for Stewart. He plays a much more, you might say, neurotic character than audiences were used to. He wanted to find Stewart, the actor, wanted to find a darker side to his performances, his films, as he claims in the commentary. Here's the commentary here with James Stewart that was recorded in 1989. He wants to find a different persona. His films had not done well after the war, despite It's a Wonderful Life, its cult status today. The movie did not do well when it was originally released. So he wanted to find a different kind of character to play a different kind of persona, and he found it here in Winchester 73 for sure. And the story, as the title indicates, the story is about a gun. It's a Winchester 73, and it's a gun that, and there were special editions of this gun, 1 in 1,000, as Winchester promoted it. And as Stewart comes into Dodge City, he is on the trail of somebody who had committed a murder, and he wants a revenge. He wants to revenge that murder, and so he's on the trail of Dutch Henry Brown, who is the perpetrator of that crime. But in Dodge City, you had to hang up your guns, so when he does meet Dutch, neither of them have a gun, and it's a great scene where they first encounter themselves, but they have no guns, and they reach for their pistols, and there's nothing there because they had to turn them in. So this is the era of Wyatt Earp. This is July 4th, 1876, the centennial. So there's a big celebration, so they're going to have a shooting contest to see who can win this gun. And the gun is really like a focal point of the film. Everybody who possesses it looks on it as almost like it's a religious relic. It's certainly indicative of the Americans' love affair with guns. And even in the written prologue, it said that everybody wanted these guns. Indians, the cavalry, this was the prized possession. So they have the shootout. But the gun sort of disappears. It's stolen. It goes through various hands, including an Indian chief, and it sets off. So we have the kind of dual story of Stewart seeking revenge on Dutch Henry, and we have the story of the gun going from outlaw Indian chief and the need to possess this gun seems to be almost instantaneous. It's an instantaneous love affair when the various characters find the gun or see the gun. So this is Stewart here, like I say, is seeking a darker character, and he is sort of obsessed by this revenge to the max. He's not going to give up. He's sort of like John Wayne in The Searchers. He's seeking out. It's an endless quest to find Dutch Henry. And then when he finds him, he loses him and must go even farther. And we get the traditional kind of Western tropes. We get the Indian battle with the Indians. This is right after Custer, and they explicitly mention this a few times. Custer had recently been massacred in a battle with various Indian tribes, and there's great character actors along the way here. Millard Mitchell, who plays his sidekick, in this revenge journey. Will Geer plays Wyatt Earp, Will Geer, Grandpa Walton in the Waltons. And Stephen McNally plays Dutch Henry. He's about as bad can be. There's a great turn by Dan Duryea. If you ever love, you're fond of Dan Duryea, this is one of his really terrific performances. Shelley Winters, one of her first films, and she's beautiful and she's wisecracking. Indeed, she is like shunted off from man to man, and they all disparage her, but she's got some wisecracks to deliver. In fact, it sounds like Shelley Winters when she used to be on Johnny Carson's show. She had a very quick wit about her. You wonder whether she might have improvised some of her lines in Winchester 73, and there's many more. And also we have two Universal. This was made at Universal International with two Universal budding stars, contract players who would soon become big time stars, and that's Rock Hudson playing the Indian chief. I think this might have been his first film. And then we see Tony Curtis in Cavalry that fights this Indian chief, and you just see him in a couple scenes, but boy, they stand out. So you very seldom do you see two big-time A-list stars of the future in one film, and even in the same sequence. So this is a film like where Stewart begins his transformation. Stewart had probably one of the greatest decades for any actor in any specific decade, this being the 1950s. And he made these 5 films with Anthony Mann, these 5 westerns. But in between, he was making Rear Window, Vertigo with Alfred Hitchcock, Bell Book and Candle. My favorite Jimmy Stewart performance at the end of the decade in Anatomy of a Murder, but these Mann-Stewart collaborations really set, I think, the tone for what Stewart was going to be. There's a scene, going to be in the 50s. There's a scene where Stewart confronts Dan Duryea in a bar, and Duryea's going to try to get a drop on him, and Stewart gets the drop on Dan Duryea, and the anger in Stewart's face and the rage was something audiences had never seen before. And this sort of neurotic characters with psychological depth, psychological problems at least, carries forward through the Mann-Stewart collaborations. And they made 3 other films that, according in the supplements, tell you that Mann really did these other 3 films with Stewart because Stewart liked Mann so much as a director. He really depended on him. And all the films were big hits. They were making a lot of money for Universal, making a lot of money for Jimmy Stewart. He was the first one to take a percentage of the profits in Winchester 73. And it made him a very rich man because that went on. The agent was Lou Wasserman, who was the super agent of his time. And it set the trend for the future in Hollywood, where the stars were going to be had more power really sometimes than the studios. So Stewart in the 50s had a very productive and just artistically, he was in so many terrific films. But then towards the end of the 50s, he thought maybe he was getting too old for this, and he would try to soften his image. I forget what Western it was that Stewart was going to make with Audie Murphy, and he wanted Mann to direct it. Mann didn't want to direct it. He thought the script was terrible, and they had a fight over the script, and Mann, I guess, said some things, and Stewart and him never talked again. Although in the commentary, Stewart is just unbelievably profuse in his positive evaluation of Anthony Mann's directorial ability. And Mann in the 50s, now Mann came out of film noir, very inexpensive kind of films, but very striking, very brutal, just like his westerns. His film noirs were pretty brutal. And then in 1950, he actually made 4 films, 3 westerns: Devil's Doorway, which was probably the most pro-Indian movie that Hollywood made in the craze of 1950s western. And in the same year that he released Winchester 73, The Furies was released with Barbara Stanwyck in a western being the lead character, and beautiful Criterion release, just gorgeous artwork, and highly recommend this. But to think that Mann made 2 of those films in the same year, plus 2 others, is just really incredible. And then he would go on later in the decade to make what is probably my favorite of his films, which is Man of the West with Gary Cooper. And then he would he's hooked up with Samuel Bronston for some epic filmmakers films filmed in Spain, Fall of the Roman Empire, and El Cid. El Cid is the one I really would love to see again. I'm not sure if that's even on Blu-ray, but I remember that it took me a long time to come across that. I saw it on TV, maybe even with commercials, I'm not sure. But I was impressed by some of the scenes in El Cid. That was with Charlton Heston. And then he died far too young. He had a heart attack in the movie he was making with Lawrence Harvey. Can't remember the name, but Lawrence Harvey then took over the directing on that film. But this is just a beautiful, beautiful artwork here in this Criterion release. And a fold-out, accordion fold-out here with Jimmy Stewart. Now, one of the aspects of Anthony Mann's westerns, besides the psychological depth to them, that certainly had a lot to do with the influence of Freud and the just dark feeling that people had following the news of the Holocaust and the dropping of the atomic bomb. These were dark. These were filmed. The film noir, flourished in this period as well. But what Mann was really good at was landscapes. Landscapes can often, they become, the characters have become part of the landscape. And you see it in Naked Spur, you really see it. The film, Another Man, Stewart Western with Robert Ryan, Janet Leigh, Ralph Meeker, you really see how the characters have to overcome not only their enemies, but also the landscape itself. And you get a feeling here, like in the Indian Attack, with the vastness of the plains, and then you get the final showdown, which is filmed on these craggy rock formations, and this is pure Anthony Mann. This is a great shootout, and you see it. You see this use of landscape, and Stewart was really cognizant in the commentaries. He said, Mann just found great locations, and he had such a visual sense of using the characters within the landscapes. So great artwork on this fold-out. Here's a picture of Steve McNally as the bad guy, Dutch Henry. You get a little bit of Shelley Winters there, and here's Dutch Henry and Waco Johnny, played by Dan Duryea, who has his eye on Shelley Winters. Stewart in a bit of a quandary. He's not a happy man in these Anthony Mann movies, for the most part, at least. So a great, I think an excellent addition. I mentioned the Jimmy Stewart commentary, which is really good. It was recorded in 1989 for a Laserdisc, and at the end of the commentary, Stewart says that, wow, this new technology, this laser stuff, this is really something. And we get a consideration of the image of Indians, a sort of visual essay in the supplements, and we get a pretty good overview of Anthony Mann's career. Now, Mann went to a very unusual school which, when he was growing up, which emphasized Greek theater and Shakespeare, and Mann started as a director, but you can see in this film and in the subsequent Mann westerns, you can see this kind of Greek tragedy, Cain and Abel, kind of a biblical, with a kind of Shakespearean overtone to it, and it's drama. And in Man of the West, there's often in Man of the West, it was the father-son, although the father is really just a father substitute. In Man of the West, Lee J. Cobb, one of the great over-the-top, hammy Hollywood performances of all time. And here it's brother versus brother, sort of Cain and Abel kind of story, which lends itself, another dimension to when you're watching these films. And in this accordion fold-out booklet, we have a just unbelievable essay by Imogen Sarah Smith, who's got to be the best writer on film today. And if you've seen the film, you're not sure. If you've seen the film before, but you're not buying for whatever reason, you're not getting the physical release, you can go on Criterion's site and read her essay on Winchester 73, which is just amazing. Okay, so a high recommendation here for Winchester 73, 1950, sort of set off the dark psychological westerns of the 1950s. Again, I think this came out in February 2025, and one of the purchases I've had in the Barnes & Noble sale, and I'm putting out videos, and my intent is to put out more videos before the end of the year, because I have a chance of reaching 500 videos by January 1st, which is kind of it's a goal. It's not all that important, but for some reason, to me it is. And I'll also be celebrating my 5th year. So I know the demand for my videos is not equal to the supply. It's not, but I'm feeling pretty good, so I feel like making videos, and there'll probably be quite a few coming out before the end of the year. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who managed to listen. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.